All righty.
Happy Aloha Friday.
Happy Aloha Friday. You know we're doing all of this because when you're looking at it on social media, you can't hear anything, but you're like, what are these people doing? All this moving in the first couple seconds on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Well, welcome to our, what we call it, Friday Live. Friday Live. And who are you, Adrian?
I am Adrian Lally.
Oh, duh. It says right
See,
at the
it says it
screen.
right there. And you're on my social media. You know, if you're like,
Yeah.
if you like our page or follow me, and you know who I am.
Well, and I am not on any social media, so I'm kind of like the groundhog. I come out only once in the spring, because I'm not on any of that. But we are Team Lally, and what we like to do is bring out to all of our viewers out there in La La Land special guests that can come from contribution, educate you. Maybe you come away with something like, "Wow, I did not know that." And so, well, we want to welcome Laurel Starks. Laurel, I always wanted to ask you, any relations to Tony Stark's Iron Man?
I get that all the time, and if only.
Yeah.
You know what though? She is like the Iron Man of the divorce niche and real estate. I can say that. We've learned a lot from Laurel.
Well, here's our introduction. Laurel's literally, people will say written the book on a particular topic. She's literally written the book on divorce and real estate. Created a great organization called the Ilumni Institute, where you're educating, or it's really awesome because we're actually going through this process and being educated not only by you, but by actual attorneys, our coaches. So let's just get into it, Adrian, unless you got anything else. Laurel, anything else you want to tell us on this introduction?
No, sounds great. I'm excited to get going.
Okay. So unfortunately, it's not, divorce and real estate. Real estate is probably a pretty exciting topic, but when you have to sell or take a look at that situation because of divorce, not necessarily a real happy situation. Let's talk about that. Why did you decide, let's go back to the beginning. Why did you decide as a realtor to focus on divorce and real estate? And what does that mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I got into the real estate industry, I came from a very different background. I was in the airline industry. So I didn't have, real estate. I didn't grow up in a real estate family, don't have a legal background. But my second listing was a divorce listing. And it was a very interesting situation I found myself in. My client, the wife, she called me and said, I need to list my house immediately so that I can get my house sold in 30 days. My son starts school out of state. And so she, sat me down and sort of told me all of the sordid details about her marriage, her divorce, and all of the things about her husband and, whatnot. And then she said, but I don't think my husband's going to be very cooperative. So she had a restraining order against him as well. And so I reached out to him, and in fact, she was correct. He was not cooperative. He told me that his wife wanted to move his son out of state, and he knew that as soon as the house sold, it would free her up to be able to do that financially and otherwise. And he said, hell will freeze over before I have any part of that. So lose my number. I'm never going to talk to you again. So pound sand, pretty much. He was true to his word, and he did not take my calls, and I actually never spoke to him again. However, I had this house that had to be sold because they were both owners of the house. And I found myself a couple weeks later sitting on a witness stand in a courtroom, which I'd never even stepped foot in a courthouse before, and telling a judge that that he was not signing and, what I needed to have done. And it was really in that moment that I learned, wow, the stakes are really high for a realtor and for this real estate transaction and for these parties, because in every sale, equity matters, every penny counts. But man, in this one, it's like they were dividing this, and this is all they had to their name in order to build their lives again. So as I continued to work in this space, I realized the big disconnect between family law and real estate. I learned that there was a lot of advice being given that was harmful to the clients.
Yeah.
And it's tough to see, people who are in the fight of their lives, and just salt is continuing to be poured into the wound of their crisis, because there are professionals that aren't trained and maybe that are, God forbid, taking advantage of a situation.
Sure.
So that's where, I was compelled to do something and to work in my own community. And so that's what I've done. And then I've taken what I've built and learned all of 15 years and turned it into a curriculum so that other realtors can impact their communities as well.
Adrian, you got a question?
Yeah, I was going to say, so you're taking this nationwide, right? You're just, and we appreciate it. We had
even in Hawaii.
Even in Hawaii. Can you share a little bit about the CLEs, how you're not only educating the agents, but you're also educating the family law professionals?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I started the Ilumni Institute, and we have got, and Team Lally is our only team on any of the Hawaiian Islands to be certified in through our institute, through the CDRE program. Yeah. So I'll talk a little bit about what the program looks like, if that's okay. And
sure.
And then, and how we as an institute, we also impact education to the family law community. So it is our program, which you all are a part of. So anyone who's watching can be assured that that Team Lally is extremely qualified and has gone through our certification, which is pretty rigorous. So we don't take just any agent. We take only agents that are experienced, that are already experts in their market. So to get even into our program, there's got to be a baseline understanding that you have you've got a masterful grasp on your market and on real estate. That's just the beginning. And then we take in a full application and we do interviews, and we only certify 50 per year. And the program is taught by family law attorneys. We've got a judicial officer, as well as other professionals. And we together, we go through a very intense 2-week immersion in understanding family law, the anatomy of family law and how it impacts real estate. We get into working with high conflict personalities and behaviors, identifying them, what it means to be a neutral. So we train in mediation and neutrality. And then we've got a very specific divorce listing protocol that is designed to take a listing and work with a case so that it is successful. These are very complex listings, and they've got about a 50% fallout rate. So a lot of that's because the approach is all wrong. So it starts there, and then it continues for 6 months. So we do case studies, we do learning labs, and then we're just a very tight-knit, high-level community of others throughout the country who are other top producers and working in their own family law communities. So we're a tight-knit sort of community among us, because we're sort of rare nationwide.
And I like the fact that on our Zoom training and all that, we have fun. But talk to where the little pitfalls that attorneys, or not necessarily attorneys, but what they'll do is they'll just say, hey, here's a realtor I work with. He's, Joey Bag of Donuts realtor during the week. And then we're going to throw in a divorce thing every once in a while. Talk like specifically the example I'm talking about, and we learned this, is that you don't meet with both of the parties at the same time. Talk about that, and what is the nuance of that, and why is that important? To give people like a specific example.
Sure. So, especially, when we're meeting with divorcing couples together, it can make a lot of sense to try to meet with them together because they may or may not be divorced yet, right? And yet they're also on the same side of a real estate transaction. However, as the house is selling, these two people are individuals and they're moving on in their own respective lives. So we need to honor that. When we meet together with the couple, then we tend to not get the full story that are critical facts that we need to know as the real estate professional so that we can navigate through the sale. We may not know, for example, there may be one client maybe that doesn't want to tell us that they are in escrow buying another property because they don't want the other spouse to know that. Well, we need to know that because it absolutely impacts how we negotiate an offer, how we negotiate, whether or not they remain in possession, length of escrow. That's just one example. But we need to have open, free-flowing conversations so that we can have a good picture of what overall is going on so that we can then, navigate it well. The other thing is that there can be some sensitive issues that come up. If we're working in, maybe there's been some domestic violence. And if I'm working with both of the clients and, there are holes in the walls, and I make a recommendation that we need to get the holes in the walls repaired, that recommendation can be a trigger and it can start conflict happening right there. And before you know it, you're just you're down a complete other rabbit hole and you've lost control of the appointment. So those are a couple of examples.
Mm-hmm. Adrian?
Oh, so Laurel, maybe you could just touch on how you're educating the family law professionals so that we can all collaborate together better with the real estate. Yeah.
Absolutely. So one of the programs that we launched last year for our CDREs is called Raising the Bar. And Raising the Bar is a national CLE program. So that for anyone who's not an attorney, that is continuing legal education, where we educate it's the fourth Wednesday of every month. And we have family law attorneys all over the country tune in, and we've always got a guest speaker or, some relevant topic where we are educating family law on real estate issues. This month, for example, next week, our speaker is a forensic credit expert. So if you've got a case where maybe one spouse was ordered to make the house payment and the car payment, but they're not, and it hurts the other spouse's credit, what can be done? What are the solutions, or how do you even quantify what that damage looks like? So if you've got a spouse ordered to make payments, they're not making payments, the other spouse's credit is impacted, maybe that spouse now cannot go buy a house. So they don't get mortgage interest deduction. They don't get to build equity. I mean, it financially is harmful. Maybe they are, they get stuck with these really high interest credit cards because that's all they can qualify for. It costs them money. So how does that get quantified in the event that the harmed spouse wants to get damages compensation? So that's an example of one of the Raising the Bar topics that we're going to have. And so we're just very passionate about bridging that gap and educating the family law community on all things real estate. And so,
and one of the things we do know, if you get a invite from one of your local CDRE expert, we give you a coupon and something that normally costs, I don't know, $50, $100. We can get you a special discount. We won't tell you until you reach out to us and talk to about it. But and
they're supposed to be learning this stuff anyways, right?
Well,
so
how do you get realtors? Yeah, how do you get realtors butts in seats? educate them, but take care of continuing education. And it's the same, I would imagine, for all licensed industries. Educate, take care of the requirements for my license. Hey, two birds with one. I'm good with that. Uh, Another example I wanted you to share with it is just how it's important to have a CDRE also in just helping to author the decree, because the example that you gave us was, I don't know if it was from the court in the actual court system or from the attorneys, but the example of like having one of the parties come off a title and not realizing that they're still obligated to the mortgage.
Yeah. Absolutely. So it is important that family law attorneys are masters in family law. The family law code section. There are a lot of different things within family law. It's a multifaceted practice. I mean, there's violence, there's criminal, there is custody, there's business division, financial, real estate. There's just a lot that goes into what a family law practitioner has to know. And so understandably, most family law practitioners are reliant on experts. And so that is what we also are for the family law community. We are experts that every family law attorney should really have a CDRE's number in their speed dial so that they can call them whenever they have a real estate issue. So one common problem, Atilio, that you alluded to is that we see a lot of nightmares happen where one spouse is still obligated to the mortgage, even though the property was awarded to the other spouse. And so assuming just because the house was awarded to the other spouse doesn't necessarily mean title actually has changed. So assuming that they do record a deed and the what we call the out spouse is deeded off, that does not touch the mortgage. So if there was a joint mortgage or joint mortgages, the out spouse, both parties are still on the hook for the mortgage. So, it can be something that easily is overlooked because listen, they've got other things in their life they're dealing with. They've got, custody battles. They're fighting to see their kids. They're dealing with the emotion of what's going on as well as what's happening with their children. And they've got to find a new place to live. And, it's a very turbulent time. So understandably, things can get overlooked. And we're here to ensure that things with the house are in check. But when someone is deeded off title and they're still reliant on the mortgage, then the person who is staying in the home, if they miss a house payment, it impacts the credit of the out spouse. And what can happen is you can go 5 years, 10 years, and you're still on this joint mortgage. And then all of a sudden they stop making a payment. And then your credit is really impacted. I mean, people's lives go on. I've even seen where, one spouse, they deed off title and then the in-spouse gets remarried and then they deed their new spouse on title. And so now you've got the ex-husband and his new wife on title with your ex-husband on the mortgage and you're still tied to the mortgage. It could just get very messy very quickly. So it's important to keep things clean.
What you described, I mean, reality TV's got nothing on that.
So, I don't even need to watch reality.
So you're talking about like mortgages and being able to, get the other party off the mortgage. And I think that leads into the importance of also having a professional on the lending side. And I know that is also a big part of the program is being able to work with those other professionals that, hold these designations on the lending side and financial planning. So maybe talk to that.
Absolutely. So mortgage lending is really, there is a special nuance in working with divorce refinances and divorce buyouts. So there are certain underwriting guidelines that are very specific to divorce. And it's important that, again, that you seek out someone who really has that specialty. So there is a CDLP, Certified Divorce Lending Professional. That is a credential that lenders have, that that they have gone the extra mile, just like you all have, and educated themselves in the divorce lending space. Because just, you go to Rocket Mortgage or you go to Lending Tree or whatever. I mean, these are very vanilla type mortgage professionals. And they're okay maybe for, a vanilla type of a loan. But when you're talking about a buyout in a divorce, it does get complicated. The court orders, the decree, all of that comes into play. And then there can even be there are certain guidelines and certain programs that are available to divorcing homeowners in the refi process that are not necessarily available to others. So it's important you find someone, and it doesn't cost you anymore. That's the thing. I mean, it really isn't, it's not like these, that it costs some big, huge premium. But it can cost you a lot if you don't, if you don't handle it correctly. There's a lot of things that can come back.
Yeah, it could cost you like being able to hold on to the house or having to sell the house if you don't consult with the right professionals.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So talking about consulting with the right professionals, how can CDREs, how can they be a resource for the attorneys?
So CDREs, really, there are three main components that CDREs offer to attorneys. So one is education. So our industry is moving very fast. It's at a very rapid pace. Things change consistently. New guidelines come out and the market's always changing. And so we as CDREs see ourselves as being the sort of the news reporter, if you will, for real estate. So keeping attorneys on the cusp of what's happening in the real estate industry so that they can properly advise their clients. That is the first thing we do, is we continue to educate family law attorneys so that you guys are on the cutting edge, and you're not just getting your news from Zillow or from, the 6 o'clock evening national news. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we are also a resource for documents and for data. So we can do title searches for you. We can find out what the chain of title was. We can see deeds or anything that's encumbering the property, pull those documents and get all of that to you. We also perform fair market valuations. So in just about every divorce, there's going to need to be a value placed on the property. So we are real estate experts that live and breathe the market. We provide fair market valuations and will testify to them. And we also will provide expert witness testimony on anything having to do with real estate itself for the most part. So that is number two. And then number three is we handle the listing and sale of real property in family law cases as trained neutral experts so that we are able to prevent and mitigate conflict. We also recuse ourselves from dual agency, which means that we will not represent a buyer on a divorce listing. So that will maximize. We don't have any kind of a conflict of interest going on. We are here to maximize the equity in the family home. So those are the three things: education, tools and resources, and divorce listings.
Gotcha. Adrian?
Well, is there anything, Laurel, that we have not touched on today that maybe we should have before we start wrapping things up with you?
I think you all have, I think we've covered a lot of good stuff. I'm happy to take any questions if anybody has anything that maybe I haven't thought of.
Well, I did, I'm going to share, I'll give you a testimonial. When you were talking about the in-spouse, the in party, sorry, the in party and the out party, I learned is you don't say outhouse party because then they feel like, so you don't say, oh, are you the in-house party or are you the outhouse party? I learned to just, that doesn't sound so good. So you say the out
No.
party and the in party,
There you
Yes,
and
go.
then,
don't say
yeah,
outhouse.
There
not
you
the
go.
outhouse party because they're like,
Outhouse.
wow.
Yeah.
So I learned,
Yeah.
I
And don't
learned a
say
good,
doghouse. Don't say
yeah,
doghouse. Are you living in the doghouse?
yeah.
Yeah, don't say that.
And I did a little slip there. I said spouse because that's one of the things that you also we've learned with the attorneys and with yourself with being compassionate is there, you know, especially when the divorce is final, that's no longer the spouse. It's
Yeah.
and you know, here's the one thing to talk about a little bit, and just on a quick one before we wrap it up, neutrality. What is it
Mhm.
that you teach us about neutrality?
Yeah. Neutrality is everything. I mean, so if you as a CDRE and as a realtor who's really quarterbacking the sale, we've got, again, like I mentioned before, we've got two people who are on the same side of a transaction, so they're seller to buyer, but they often oppose one another and they cannot agree on the fact that, you know, the sky is blue oftentimes. So it is critical that the person who is quarterbacking that is not only is neutral, but also is cognizant and aware of the appearance of neutrality. So I just had I just got out of a listing appointment, and I just before coming on here, I was in the house and they both are living there and they were both there. I went and did a walkthrough and they were both there at the same time. Husband's very, very vocal. He talked a lot and he said, you know, walked me through and told me about all these things and then proceeded to tell me what their goals are. And I noticed that the wife was rather quiet. She wasn't saying a whole lot. And so I made sure that I gave her very purposeful and intentional eye contact, and that I would ask her for validation of anything that he said when he was the spokesperson for both of them. You know, well, we would like to not have to make many repairs. And so then I would look at her and say, you know, how do you feel about that? And it's important that we do that. It would have been so easy for me to have walked through and pretty much had that whole conversation with just him. I mean, she just really didn't say a lot. She was kind of in the
Yeah,
background. It would have been so easy to walk out and I might have thought, oh, I nailed it. But what I really did was I continued to empower him. And as I'm continuing to empower him, I'm disempowering her.
yeah,
And she didn't feel heard. She didn't feel empowered. So there would be a good chance that she would say, I don't trust that realtor. And I
yeah.
would have never necessarily known that.
And I think that fine nuance is what you're pointing out because typically as realtors, we're meeting with a couple. It's a combined effort. Oh, let him do all the talking, no big deal.
Yeah.
When we're going through divorce, there's a reason they're going through divorce. I want to be heard. I want to be heard. And you know, we've been doing this for 15 years, and you very intentionally taught us that you don't want to be caught in the middle, like he's her realtor, he's his realtor,
Bingo. Yeah.
and that because they've got two licensed individuals, attorneys,
Yeah.
his attorney, her attorney. There's no, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no his and her realtor. You
No,
only have one realtor.
that's
A
right.
real estate team. So
That's right.
neutrality was a big one.
Huge.
But
Yep.
Adrian, what else? Because I'll just screen share the Ilumni Institute here real quick.
Well, I want
Show
to point
people
out
the
too that
website.
we'll be having Laurel on our radio show, and we are so looking forward to having you as our guest there as well. And
I'm
just
excited.
really appreciate you taking your time this Friday afternoon to
Mhm.
catch up with us and educate our viewers today.
Yeah.
So thank
Well,
you, Laurel.
And if
it has been my pleasure. And thank you all for everything, all the good work that you're out there doing as well.
yeah,
Mhm.
I tell you, we've been doing this for a long time. You know, the other thing I'm going to give the big plug here for the Alumni Institute you guys were not one of, because as realtors, some of us realtors have alphabet soup at the end of our name, all the designations. And it's interesting because most consumers have no idea what all that means. And if you ask consumers, they really don't pay attention to it. They're awed by the number of them. And Adrian and I have paid for enough of them where I have never had a designation where you actually, the qualification wasn't just us writing a check.
Yeah.
We were nervous. We got interviewed by an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
But she's really nice. Her name's Pam. But anyway.
Hi, Pam.
You all pass with flying colors. She doesn't pass everyone.
Yeah.
But no, you're absolutely right. Yeah. We require more than credit card approval for our designation. Yeah.
Yes. This designation you don't just get it with Visa, MasterCard, or American Express.
Right.
I was very impressed with the screening process that you all put us through, and the just the quality of the education. A lot of the that we're actually have our coaching is coming from you as an expert on the real estate side, but again, actual practicing attorneys and/or attorneys with long, huge resumes in the business, and also lenders and all the other experts that you brought on. If people want to get more information, I know we had a comment here from if you're Batman, she's Robin, Nikki, and that's hiding your face. So let me put it back to here. Boop, and there they can go to that website.
Perfect.
If they want to sign up for your guys' class and the next one coming up. Okay, Adrian, anything else we got for Laurel?
No, we're looking forward to continuing to learn and grow. And thank you again. We appreciate you, Laurel.
Well, thank you all. And honestly, on behalf of all of us at Ilumni, we are thrilled to have Team Lally in our portfolio of CDREs. You all bring a huge value and expertise just in your own right. And then also for you all to be representing us on the island of Oahu is an honor for us as well.
Yeah. So as we end the broadcast, we're going to go like beauty queens and wave. Queen of